Welcome to Watch With Us. Watch With Us. Here's your host.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Us Weekly's Emily Longaretta.
So I'll tell you right now, I finished the book this morning. I was sitting at my desk and I not only laughed out loud a few minutes before, but at the end, I actually started crying at my desk. So I was like, okay, I know it's a good book when that's happening.
That means so much to me. Thank you so much. Oh, I hope that I touch people and that this book resonates with so many readers and means something to people. And I'm so happy to hear that you were touched in a good way. You know, I'm happy you laughed and I'm happy you cried in a good way.
Definitely.
So thank you for that.
Of course. So I want to start out. Why did you decide to write this now?
Great question. I talk in the book a lot about how uncomfortable I have always been with being a celebrity. So between like interviews, red carpets, talk shows, sometimes even podcasts, I just get very, very nervous. And I feel like writing is my love language. And I've always been a writer since I was a little girl, writing stories at my mom and dad's house, through college where I majored in English literature, through my master's degree where I wrote a 75,000 word thesis. I've always been a writer at heart, and it's where I'm most comfortable expressing myself. And so I really wanted to write this book now for several reasons. One, so people can kind of get to know me better than they have over the last 30 something years since Full House premiered. But also because, I have the audience now. I've always wanted to write a memoir. I figured a memoir is something you write at the end of your life, reflecting back at, the past 80, 90, 100 years. But I've got a captive audience now with the success of Fuller House. And I have great messages, I think, that I want people to hear about regarding mental health and postpartum depression and anxiety. And now's the time, strike while the iron's hot. We're going into our last season here at Fuller House. And this is a great time to tell all of those wonderful stories from behind the scenes on the set of Full House and Fuller House, and then to share my personal life too, things that I've never really talked about before anywhere.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit eye-opening for people who...
It's titled Full Circle because I really do feel like I have come a long way, and I'm still doing the same show that I did 30 years ago. And we're literally on the same set. And I'm almost in the exact same dressing room right now as we're recording this podcast. But so much of me has changed. And I'm such a different person today than I was when I started this whole journey.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I think this applies to anyone, is that every challenge you go through, every success, every hardship, that makes you who you are today. And I wouldn't change a single thing, even those hardest moments when I was, on the bathroom floor crying and unable to get up. I'm grateful for that too, because I'm a person because of it.
Definitely. And to speak a little on that, you wrote, obviously, the divorce chapters were the toughest ones for you to write, which understandably so. But one thing I love about this, and I read a lot of celebrity memoirs, but what I love about this is you didn't take a negative turn at all toward your ex or toward anything, because you guys are co-parenting and now you have this great relationship. But did you consider kind of not including or not going that deep into those kind of things in the book? Or did you run things by him? How did that kind of process work?
Yeah, that was a question I kind of struggled with throughout writing the book, and especially the divorce chapter, which was the hardest chapter to write. And I put it off as long as possible because I was just kind of dreading it and avoiding it. And I started off just by writing sort of stream of consciousness style, things that I remembered. I went back to diary entries I wrote back then, which were very painful to read. And I just kind of spilled my heart onto the page or, onto my keyboard. And I constantly questioned, how much do I want to share? I want to be honest, but I want to respect the privacy of my ex-husband and my kids. I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. And honestly, today, I don't really have many negative things to say about my ex-husband. We're great friends now. I gave him an early copy of the book and I said, look, read it and tell me if you have a problem with anything. I think I've been fair. I think I've been very honest. And I think I've told a very accurate story. And he read it and he had very, very nice things to say, complimentary things. And I think it was a little emotional for him to read too, just kind of reliving some of those memories, good and bad. So yeah, it ended up being a very fulfilling experience. But I was nervous, I'll admit it, when I wrote it and I sent it to my editor and I said, is this too much? And she said, I think you could go even deeper. And I'm like, okay, well, let me draw the line somewhere. So I am very honest. There are some things I do hold back, and that it's mostly in regard to my ex-husband's privacy, because he's a very private person. He's barely even on social media or Instagram. So, we couldn't be more opposite. Here I am, this public persona, this celebrity with, 1 million something followers on Instagram, and he, barely appears even on Facebook. So I wanted to respect that. I'm sure in some ways he might just wish I had never gone public with anything, but he had a great response to it. And that was a big relief for me, that he gave his stamp of approval to the book, and that he enjoyed it and he respected everything that I wrote.
Absolutely. And I think that it really doesn't, like you said, you didn't go at it bashing him or, going negative at all. It was just explaining the process that you went through from your perspective, which is, refreshing to see. I wanted, like everyone who I think will read this book, I really identified with a lot of it. But I think a big part was that the New Kids on the Block was a big part, I don't think people realized, of you kind of like getting over a little bit of a hump after going through the divorce and kind of, letting music be part of your therapy, which is something you also talk about. I love that so much because as a Full House fan and a Fuller House fan, obviously New Kids on the Block have been a part of the show. When they came back, when they showed up on Fuller House, did you tell them like, hey, by the way, thanks for helping me over a hump in my life?
Oh my God, no! I'm blushing even at the thought of that. No, I mean I'm friendly with several of the band members, but not that friendly. I mean, no, I would just, oh my gosh, I blush even thinking about them reading this. And I talk about them a few times in the book, and there's a nice acknowledgement to all 5 of them at the end of the, in my acknowledgement section. But no, oh my gosh, if they ever read this, I'm sure they would appreciate it, because we kind of have very parallel stories, at least as far as comebacks.
Yeah.
It's this 90s cultural iconic thing that was super popular back in the 90s, and then it came back 20 something years later to massive success. So in that sense, the New Kids on the Block story is very similar to Full House. But yeah, I'm sure they know that a lot of their fans use music as escape in their concerts. It's just a wonderful place to let your hair down and scream and sing at the top of your lungs. It's very healing. Music is very healing, and nostalgia is also a very powerful thing. And so, yeah, I get a little embarrassed. I was a little embarrassed to write that. Yeah, New Kids on the Block helped me through my divorce. I'm sure anybody out there would kind of make fun of it. But when you break it down and think about it, yeah, it's a great thing to be able to just put your worries behind, to shelve all of your problems, and just for that moment at the concert, I went to their festival in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which was outdoors, and it started raining in the middle of the concert, and we were all just drenched. Like they were passing out ponchos, but the ponchos did nothing. It was a complete downpour, and I just remember looking up at them on the stage. My hair was soaked, and I was just beaming and screaming and laughing and singing. And I just thought, oh, I feel so free. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful moment, at least for that moment in time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, no matter what it is, which band or which music genre. A lot of people can relate to that.